Hello everyone, today I'm answering one of your biggest questions is when we have anxiety issues, how do we deal better with people with personality disorders or deal with those awkward people or those, what's the word I'm looking for, difficult people. Hi, it's Mark Morley here, the anxiety expert here at Newcastle Hypnotherapy, and I do love your questions, so please keep them coming in. Thank you for all the questions that we get, and they really help us to put these little videos together and to let us know what you're thinking. So, people who are difficult, people with personality disorders. Now, I don't like the word personality disorders because really we just need to look at the behavior of people and notice what we have to change. And we can do that on ourselves. It's difficult to change other people because they don't really want to do so. But if they're motivated and willing to look at some help, that will happen. But the best thing we can do is change how we respond, how we act. So the good news is there's lots of skills and tools that we can use, because when I start working with a lot of anxiety clients, they tell me the thing that pushes their button, that causes that anxiety to be triggered, are usually people with funny behaviors or who are difficult. So how can we do this? Well, I'm going to give you some examples. But the first thing we want to do is just simply to look for those patterns. What do you notice about the other person? What causes them to do that? Why do they always do it? Is it just something they constantly do all the time? And then the other side we need to look at is what would be a better behavior on our side? What can we do to make things easier instead of responding and going through it? And again, we can't change the other person usually, but we can change the response that we get. So some good examples here was the first one. I had a lovely guy. He used to run a business with his wife, now his ex-wife. And what happened was that he quite often, as part of the business, he'd read new business ideas. He was into a lot of personal development and trying to push the business forward. And he found this great idea that would save them some time, help the staff, and make their profits even better. And when he passed this message on to his wife, she immediately just dismissed it, said, "Don't be stupid, we don't want to know anything about that, just forget it." And off she went in a mood. And he was quite annoyed because she didn't even consider it. But then about a week later, she turned around and said, "I've had this great idea. Why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? This will increase the profits, help the staff, and help us make more money." And he was absolutely livid because she didn't remember that he'd given her this information. And she totally dismissed it when he said, "I told you this a week ago." And then he repeated this, and he found over the years this same pattern happened again and again. Whenever he tried to solve a problem, she would throw it back at him. "No, it's your problem, it's your fault." And then whenever he put a new idea in, she'd totally dismiss it. But then about a week later, "I've had this great idea." So when we spoke, I said, "Look, here's an idea. Why not wait until she's nice and relaxed out of work to put any ideas forward?" So either they could have a meeting out of the office to discuss new ideas, and he'd say, "Look, I've got some great ideas. I want you to read this and tell me in about a week what you think." That worked like a treat. She'd take some time, she didn't make an instant decision, and it pushed forward for her. The other thing he found was that if he left magazines or articles on the things that he was trying to do and left them near where she sat on the couch all night, then sometimes she would read them and that would push it forward. So sometimes we have to look at the way that we deliver information, but by just looking at that pattern, in the end he stopped getting frustrated and just let the process happen. He didn't need the credit for that, but it is annoying if you come up with a good idea and this is what happens there. So that's one of the first examples. Look for the pattern and find better ways around it. The second one, I had a client and she used to go and visit a relative on a regular basis in a care home. And this went fine for years until one day she went in, and as soon as she walked through the door, this client turned around, the guy in the care home turned around and said, "Look, I hate you, go away." And she came out in tears because she doted on this person, couldn't figure it out. We had a chat about it, and I said, "Go and ask some questions. This could be a cry for help. It may be there's a hidden message in there." So she went back in and got the same thing. "I hate you, go away." And she sat down and said, "Look, I'm sorry to hear that. What is it that's upsetting you?" And he said, "Well, first of all, every time you come in, you bring the same type of biscuits for years." Now, these biscuits used to be his favourite, but because he brought them week after week after week, he got fed up with them, and he just wanted some variety in the biscuits that came in. And then the second thing he said, "Well, you do come and visit me, but I'd love you just to take me out for a cup of tea. I'd love to go and have a drive in the country. I'm sick of sitting here." So he was frustrated. He just wanted a bit of variety and a bit of a change. And it was a lot of work to take him out. But when she got him out and took him for a cup of tea and got different biscuits and did this, things got much, much better. So listen for those cry for helps, listen for those hidden messages, and see what else is going on there. The next one is what I call the Uncle Fred story. We had a client and she was lovely. She had a great family who used to get together once a month or something and have a big sort of buffet together and have some fun times. But every time she walked through the door, Uncle Fred would have a go at her about her weight, out of the blue for nothing. And she'd get really upset, lose her temper, and spend the rest of the time in a separate room crying around the other relatives. And I just said to her, what would be a better response here? How can we win this situation? And she thought about it. And then the next time she went in and there was Uncle Fred. And before he had a chance to open his mouth, she said, "Hi, Uncle Fred, how are you doing? I've lost 6 pounds this week and I'm really going to enjoy my food today." And she went up to the table, piled her plate as high as she could, and then she came and gave it to Uncle Fred and said, "There you go, I don't want you to starve, you're looking a bit skinny." And then she went and got her food. And the family were delighted because there was no argument, there were no tears. Uncle Fred didn't know what to say. He just had to try and get his way through all this food. And she felt much better. So again, she noticed the pattern and she noticed a better behaviour that would work there. And we can all use that one in lots and lots of ways. The birthday card story. We've had this lots and lots of times. I don't know why it's always birthday cards, but the situation is we had a lovely client. Her mother asked her to buy a birthday card for somebody else in the family. So the client goes off, she trots through the rain, she goes into the supermarket, she spends ages picking a card, she brings it back, and the mother goes absolutely ballistic, really gets annoyed. The client gets upset, comes out, doesn't want to do any more favours for her mum, and they didn't talk for about a week. But I've seen this with a lot of clients. So what I say to all of them with this story is start to ask questions. So if mum says, "I want you to go and get a birthday card for your brother," you could say, "Okay, I'm happy to do that. What sort of card would you like? Do you want a big one, a small one? Do you want a funny one, a dirty one, a loving one? What is it you want from a card?" And then if that person is extremely difficult, the other thing you can do is go into the supermarket and use your phone, take a picture and send a message. Is this one suitable? That way everybody's happy and it saves people falling out. Asking questions gets us much more information. It's very easy to assume that everybody wants the same things as us, or we know their taste. And I've had this repeatedly because my mother is one of the best people in the world for sending things back. So we need to take time to ask questions and find out what people really, really want. Okay, the next one, the awkward mother-in-law. We've had plenty of these, but yes, it seems that mother-in-laws really do upset an awful lot of my clients. So this particular one was where the mother-in-law was really intruding on the relationship and it was causing problems and the relationship was about to break up. The mother-in-law would always, at every opportunity, she'd either send texts, she would ring up, really silly hours, or at family gatherings, she'd always corner this poor girl and tell her what she needed to do better, what she was doing wrong, how to bring her kids up and all this sort of stuff. And really that's not acceptable. We have to stand back and let our kids make their own mistakes and learn themselves. So the way that we handled this, first of all, the client used the spinning technique that's on a previous video to always get herself into a good mental state. She would never ever deal with a mother-in-law from then on if she wasn't ready. She wouldn't answer the phone unless she was 100%. She wouldn't go into a room where she knew she was unless she was in a good mental state. And the spinning technique that we've shared really, really helped her. And then the point was, as soon as the mother-in-law started to come over, she'd go over, she'd move herself over to her, give her some compliments. "Oh, you look lovely tonight. Would you like another drink?" Talk positively to her so she wasn't keeping away from her. And then after 3 minutes, she'd pass her on to another member of the family. "Oh, have you seen Sharon tonight? She's got something she wants to talk about. Have you seen Fred? He's got something going on." And she'd constantly keep pushing this mother-in-law around the room and feeding her with drink and keeping it away. She found loads of excuses. It was things like, "Oh, the stove's on, I need to go sort it out. Oh, one of the kids needs me. The phone's just buzzed, I need to go and get that call." She also reduced down the amount of time she spent around this lady, and it worked like a treat. And eventually the mother-in-law started to realize there was a problem and calmed it down. So this is really interesting, that you need to be in control of the situations when it comes to difficult people. The other one that was really interesting was we had a lady and she had 2 lovely kids and she was constantly taking them out and having fun, play parks and walks. But she had a friend who said, "Oh, I'd love to come along." And this was one of her best friends. but she was always late, or she would ring up an hour and a half after they'd agreed to meet to cancel, but then the kids were stuck in a cold car and getting upset and annoyed. So the rules that we put were, in future when you agree to say you're going to meet on Sunday at 12 o'clock at the park, meet somewhere that as soon as you get there, the kids go out and they play, and if this friend turns up, then great, but if they don't, it doesn't spoil the day. If it's for a meal in a restaurant or a cafe, you meet at say 7 o'clock, you start the meal and you order straight away. If the person's late, they have to wait. This works a treat because there's loads of people around us. I've got loads of people like this who used to do this. I don't tolerate that anymore. It's very, very rude. One of the funniest ones I saw, there was a guy I did a bit of work from years ago. He was always 2.5 hours late. No matter what happened, he was late for everything. And he had this business with loads of staff. And one night he said, we're going out for an Indian meal, all meet at so-and-so. He turned up 3 hours late. All the staff were absolutely hammered because they just sat there drinking all night. The restaurant refused to serve them food and got really annoyed. And when he turned in, the staff were just starting to walk out. You can't do that. You can't do that to people in life. So it's important to make these rules and to deal with it all. So remember that spinning technique. Always get yourself into a good mental state before you deal with any difficult people or people with personality disorders. When you're in a good state, it seems to magically affect everything around you and you feel much better. But when you get into a negative state, the other person realizes and they unconsciously pick up on it and it makes things worse. But those two simple rules are, one, look for the patterns are a really good idea. And the second one is look for what would be a better response from you. Now this is interesting. If you respond in a negative way, you could turn around and say, what responses or habits do I want to change? And if you write it down and you're aware of it, you can then start playing with it. There's loads of techniques and resources online, but by all means, give me some questions and we will do that. So I hope that's really useful, and now I'm asking for your help. These videos I know help lots and lots of people, and could I ask you just to hit the like and the subscribe button, because when that happens, YouTube shows that to more and more people, and it means more people get help. And we're really trying to help as many people as we can, because as I mentioned in the last video, we're getting a bit overloaded now with work until we get lots more staff on board. So hit the like, hit the subscribe, that really helps me. If you wanted to work with us to sort your anxiety out privately and faster, you can look for the link below to book a free assessment call with me. Please only do that if you're serious about sorting your anxiety. We are limited to doing as many of those as we can per week, but we can't fit everybody in. So only if you're serious. And thank you. I hope you found that useful. There's lots more videos on this channel, and we'll see you all again soon. Keep those questions coming. Take care.